Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Abby and I like to talk about spooky things. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you 27 terrifying TikToks from Appalachia. I guess you can consider this kind of a little bit of a spin-off of my 50 state series. During my search for some of the Appalachian state TikToks, I came across a bunch of TikToks that were saying that they were from Appalachia but didn't specify a state. So it kind of ended up giving me a category outside of state-specific ones. And I know you guys love Appalachia. I love Appalachian stories. So I figured I would make a little subcategory here. Now, in my searches, I have come up with 67 Appalachian TikToks. But that would be like a 5-hour-long video. So I'm going to split this up into 2 parts. And honestly, I'll probably continue every once in a while doing a little Appalachian video. Just because, I mean, gosh, the area is so fascinating when it comes to, I guess history, but as we talk about here, paranormal. So this won't be like a back-to-back 2-parter because it's not necessary, but today I'm showing you 28 of those 67 TikToks that I've saved from Appalachia, and in a few weeks we'll circle back and I'll show you some more. Real quick, for those of you who have been keeping up with kind of the health stuff that I've been talking about, I'm planning on doing like a get ready with me and kind of talking from like beginning to end about everything that's gone on so far in depth on my Instagram and TikTok. I'm probably going to film that within the next week or so because I really haven't shared much about it on those platforms. So if you're interested, go ahead and check me out on there and I'll be getting a full story time of what's gone on so far up there soon. But last you guys heard, I had an MRI that was upcoming. MRI went fine, except for the fact that the contrast did not sit well with me and I was nauseous for like 2 days afterwards. It was also a pain swishing out my piercings and then putting them all back in. And there really weren't any results yielded. What we were looking for, we did not find. I'm just going to keep it simple and not like give too many details for those who don't care. Like I said, I'll have a full in-depth kind of sit down talk through on my Instagram and TikTok soon. But what we were looking for and what doctors assumed it was not the case. So I had a little bit of a depression day because while the result wouldn't have been good, it was the most easily fixable out of all of them. So I have been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, but there's still probably other things that I have that haven't been explained yet. So we're on our way. I hope it really doesn't take that much longer, but it sounds like it might. So that's all I got. It's not much, but the wonderful world of medical issues, I guess. Anyway, but if you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, click the subscribe button down below, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I post Sundays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. And without further ado, let's get right on into the video. Our first TikToks for the user, Brian SM91.
The video I'm about to show you is very disturbing. I'm just gonna let it play for you and then I'll give you the background.
See? The lights go off. Now watch. You're gonna see.
What you just saw was security footage that was sent to me by a woman who worked at a daycare in East Tennessee, Appalachia region. This daycare is actually a very old church that was turned into like a private daycare school. She said that events leading up to this, she was kind of having some weird experiences where she would be in her office after hours and would hear like people walking down the stairs, and then she would go check the stairwell and nobody would be there, or she would hear noises coming from classrooms and open up the door and see nothing. She said she would be the only one on the property at this time because she was in charge of like opening the daycare center, and then she would often stay after hours. So nobody was in the building when she was hearing these noises. On this particular day, she was opening the daycare. She went in that door that you saw at the end of the hall and noticed there was an iPad laying on the ground. This was really odd to her because these iPads are put into this like cabinet area that are hooked on like chargers. And she said they're very secure and they're like sitting up on charging decks, if that makes sense. She thought maybe an intruder came in or something, so she immediately notified the security officer who came and checked the camera footage. And that is the camera footage that you saw. Literally, the way that iPad just flings out of that cabinet is giving me chills right now. In the beginning, I feel like I also saw some kind of an orb object, but I've watched this video so many times and I feel like it's just unexplainable. Tell me what you saw in the video, if you saw the orbs like I did, or if you noticed anything else that's odd, and leave in the comments if you have any weird experiences like this.
Okay, that footage is great. I personally have no doubts that there's something paranormal going on there. I mean, I don't really know how else you explain that footage and how that could happen. I feel like it's very unlikely for it to be like a physics thing or just accidentally falling over. I really think it's paranormal. And quite honestly, I would be so afraid to be there by myself because of the activity. I feel like it's one thing to be in your own home that's haunted, which still isn't great in my opinion, just my personal preferences. But it's another thing to be in a building, even if it's like familiar because it's your workplace. I feel like it just has like an extra level of uncomfortability kind of with a paranormal situation where I would be freaked out because it's probably kind of industrial. It's not homey, cozy, safe. Something that's like your place. It's like it's your work building and you're there by yourself maybe, and there's long hallways and it's just the vibes are off. And then when you mix paranormal along with it, I would be really, really nervous to be there by myself. Our next two TikToks are with the user amethystsnowxx.
Appalachia is full of many, many secrets, and I grew up surrounded by many of them, and some still visit me to this day. Let's talk about it. Did I get your attention? Hopefully I did. So I shared one of my stories yesterday of my earliest memories with paranormal stuff. I don't know what I would call it. I don't know if it would be spirits. I don't know if it's ghosts. Call it whatever you want. I have no idea. All of my stories are 100% true. I have been seeing things since I've been about 3 to 4 years old. I grew up in West Virginia in the Boogie Woods. And I'm just doing a however many part series of basically all of the things I've seen or heard throughout my entire life. And like I said, all of these things are true. They've happened to me. And I literally have no reason to make this stuff up and lie on my TikTok. It'd be embarrassing if I was lying. Let's talk about the ghosts that I seen in my grandma's house. I don't remember how old I was. I would guess age 7 to 10 years old. So my grandma and grandpa would go to church every single Sunday. And once I got a little bit older, I was like into computers and iPads and stuff. And obviously I didn't like, going to church that much. So I wanted to stay home and play on my electronics because in the Boogie Woods, there's no service or Wi-Fi back then. So literally I, Wi-Fi to church back then. There was Wi-Fi at the house. But obviously I didn't want to go to church. It was boring. I would go sometimes though. So anyways, I remember asking my grandpa if I could stay home and I'll keep the door locked. I will do whatever, I just want to play my games. They agreed. They was like, yeah, that's fine. So where my grandma lives, she is literally on her own like piece of private land. And then my dad's house was directly beside her. I'm pretty sure my dad was gone. I don't know if he was working, took a trip, at a concert, whatever, but I don't remember my dad being home at that time. And right on the other piece of land beside us was literally our family. And then up on the back hill, we had more family. So it was kind of like our own little, like rural, like family area, whatever you want to call it. So they left. I don't exactly remember how this all played out, but I remember sitting at the computer desk and playing. And I got up and I went to the kitchen to get something to eat, something to snack on, get a drink, And I just felt this weird like energy or this presence. Like I just felt like I was maybe being watched or something. But I was a kid, so I didn't really know how that feeling or what that feeling meant. Does that make sense? So I went back and I sat at the computer and I felt something in there like watching me. And I remember looking like out of the corner of my eye and the couch was like facing. So here's me at my computer, right at the computer table. And then the couch is like across the living room, but like facing that way. and I remember just like seeing someone out of the corner of my eye, and I remember turning my head and looking over, and it was this elderly lady sitting on the couch. She was like gold, and she was glowing. I know that sounds so crazy, and I didn't feel like this was a negative energy or bad spirit. This was like one of my only encounters with something that didn't feel bad. I've had encounters with things that feel safe or feel good, or some that don't feel so good, or some that are really scary. But I've had more probably scary experiences than good. So I looked over, and I had to like, I looked at the corner of my eye, seen something, doing whatever on my computer with my snacks, whatever. And then like I had to like take myself back and like look back. And I don't know how to explain it. It was this elderly lady. She had very short hair. She had on like Sunday service, like church clothes. She was in like I think a floral dress, like a long dress. It was just giving like church vibes. And then she had on like one of those headpieces that some women wear to church. It was like a little hat, like a hairpiece with like a flower on it. And it was like a little hat with like a flower on the front. And then like, how the veils are, like those little veils. Obviously not like a wedding veil, but it was like just a little church one. I don't know how to explain it. So whenever I looked at her, I just remember her being like golden and warm and had like light. She was kind of like clear, but like an outline of golden. I could kind of see some detail on her face, but not much because the veil covered like half of her face, but it was a sheer veil, but I still couldn't see her face that well. And I just caught a glimpse of it for a second, and then she was gone. And I just remember seeing that, and I was spooked because I was a child, but I don't remember feeling like any negative energy from that. But that was another one of my stories, and part of me likes to think that was potentially my granny visiting me. I could be wrong, but my grandma's mother was alive whenever I was very young, and I have a few memories of her. Not many because she passed away when I was young. I can't remember if she had passed in my grandmother's house or if they had took her to the hospital and she passed on there. I would have to ask my grandma if she passed away in the house or not. Like I said, I don't remember. But the woman just kind of resembled my granny, I feel like. And I don't know if that was maybe like her visiting me as a child. The only side that I remember of her was, I'm not going to say the bad side, but she had Alzheimer's, I think. Dementia. I'm not sure what it was, but she had something right before she had passed, and she struggled. She was kind of hateful and moody, but whenever I seen that like ghost or whatever you want to call it, it just seemed like a very like nice elderly woman just sitting there on the couch just watching me. And then she was gone. And that's the only memory I have. I don't remember if she just poof vanished into thin air. I don't know if I turned my head and then turned back and then she was gone. Don't remember because I was so young. But that is another little story that I have. And if you guys are interested in any more stories, let me know. And I can share my other experiences that I had growing up in West Virginia. Alright y'all, I'm going to do a little story time on some ghosts or some spirits or whatever that I have encountered over my life. I have a million stories to tell, but I figured I'd get on here tonight and share one of my earliest memories and stories. So I have been seeing things or having encounters with things since I have been like 3 years old. Literally my earliest memories have to do with spirits. I don't know what you would call them. I don't know. I do think I had an encounter with a demon. I never say with the D because I feel like that is asking to bring things into your home. So I won't even say the Oogie Man either. Like I won't even say the first letter because I do not want these things in my house. So when I was like 3 years old, maybe 4, my mom was with my sister's dad at the time, and we were living in this house in West Virginia. And I mean, I'm from West Virginia, but it was a little town in West Virginia. So in this house, I have so many memories of things that happened to me there. Like, I guess with a ghost, I don't fucking know. I still to this day do not know what they are. So one of the scariest memories that I have in that house was when I was little. I remember seeing something. I don't really remember what, but I remember crying and running to my mom's room or crying for my mom. I'm not sure how it exactly went down, but basically I ended up in my mom's bedroom. And I remember laying in bed with her. And I looked up at the ceiling, and it was, I think there was a ceiling fan. I'm positive. From my memory, there was a ceiling fan in that room. And I remember looking up, and it looked like this big gargoyle was on the ceiling fan. So like basically it was like clinging onto the ceiling fan with its head sideways, so like I seen its face, and then it was like holding onto it, so it was like sideways holding onto it, and then like I seen its back and its legs like hugging the ceiling fan, and I seen its wings. And at the time obviously I didn't know what a gargoyle was, but like now as an adult with the memory of that memory, I know that it was a gargoyle. And it really freaked me out. I remember screaming and crying to my mom over that. It terrified me. And it was just like spinning. I don't know, I just seen it spinning, like looking up at the ceiling, and I just remember crying and being scared. And then another incident in that same exact house was, there was one night that I was asleep in my bed and I heard something. Like it sounded like a man was talking to me or something, like I don't know. And I kind of like peeked like over my cover, and I seen someone standing in my doorway, but it wasn't like a person in my doorway. It was literally like, I don't know how to explain this. It was basically the outline of a person, but they were clear, but I could see their outline, and they didn't have hair or anything. Like I don't know how to explain it. It was literally a clear person with a dark outline. I don't think I would put it under the shadow people category, because I've seen shadow people before, and it's like more of a shadow, like black, and you see it as a blur. This was literally a person. Like it was like a tall man figure that was clear, but you could see that it was clear. Does that make sense? And literally the outline, I don't know how to explain it. It drives me insane because I literally have no idea how to explain it. So basically, that figure was standing at my bedroom door, and it was like asking me if I wanted anything to drink. It was like, do you want a cup of water, or do you want a drink of water? Like, are you thirsty or something? And I don't know why, but I was scared at first when I seen it, and then after it was like being nice to me and asked me if I wanted a drink of water. The only memory I have is me getting up and going to the kitchen. It disappeared. Literally, once I got up and got out of my bed, I don't have any memory of seeing it after that. But I went to the kitchen, and I remember there being a cup of water there, or the sink being on or something. Like I said, I don't have the best memory because I was like 3 or 4 years old at the time. But like I said, I literally remember there being a cup of water, and I feel like the sink was on also. I might have turned the sink off. I don't know. I literally don't know. Like, I wish I could go back and like relive this moment so I could have like a solid story, but I just remember like bits and pieces. And I remember drinking the water, and then I went back to bed, and that was it. There was another time too that I have in that same house that me and my cousin were sleeping in my bedroom, and the lights were off. And I don't know what happened, but we heard a noise. My cousin may have left at the point. I don't know if he stayed the night or not, but he was there. But like I said, I was literally a small child, so I could be having my story wrong. I don't know if he stayed the night. I want to say he stayed the night and he slept in my room, but I'm not 100% positive if he did. Maybe he just visited. But I remember I had a pink chair. Like, I don't know. It wasn't a beanbag chair. It was like a little round pink chair with like little metal bars. It was like a little, I don't know, it was a mini chair. And I had Beanie Babies in it, but the Beanie Babies that you get from the Happy Meal toys back then. And it was like full of those little Beanie Babies. And I remember I was laying in my bed trying to go to sleep, and I heard like basically those Beanie Babies like fall or like hit the wall or something. Like, they have a distinct sound if you throw them down. Like, if you know, you know. So I literally remember like hearing them like hit the ground or hit the wall or something. And then I feel like my cousin was there. I want to say that me and my cousin turned the light on, and the chair was flipped over, and the Beanie Babies were on the opposite side of the room. That's how I want to say I remember it. But then again, my cousin could have not been there, and this was just me experiencing this by myself. Like I said, I can't remember exactly if he was there or not. But I do remember turning on the light and seeing that. And I think those are the only memories I'm pretty sure that I have in that house. We were not in that house long at all. We were not there long at all. My mom said that she also like felt things or felt like someone was watching her in that house. And she said that my grandpa had talked to her before too about how I would go to their house on the weekends and like cry to them about how I didn't want to go back to that house. So the proof is there. I do have some more stories though, if you guys want to hear any more. I have so many from the houses that I grew up in, from just like seeing things in general, but that is literally my experience with something. And I just feel like something has like clung to me my whole life ever since that incident. And now that I'm speaking about this story to you guys, it will probably come back to bite me in the ass. Because whenever I keep quiet and I don't speak about that story, only that story specifically, whenever I don't speak about that story, about that house, if I don't talk about it for a year or two, nothing happens, nothing bothers me. But it's like after I talk about that story, things start happening again. So I'm literally like sacrificing my sanity for you guys. So.
A gargoyle on a ceiling fan? Okay, if you wake up and you see a gargoyle on your ceiling fan, that's pretty horrifying. But if it's like you design a ceiling fan that has gargoyles on it, the concept of that is pretty cool. Like, I think that would be a really like eclectic, cool decor item to have in your house. But when you wake up and see like the real thing or some entity on your ceiling fan in the middle of the night, that's an absolute no-go. I love how a lot of these things, I'm like, in the right situation, that would be cool. But I'm like, in the last story we were talking about some like a spider bat thing that some lady rolled over and saw in her hotel room bed, and it was like some creature. And I was like, as a plushie, that would be really cool. Like, I don't know why my brain always does that. I'm like, in a different scenario, that would be great. But I'm also kind of concerned about the man telling her to go get water. Like, it's weird that she goes down there and there's already a glass filled for her and potentially the faucet is on. But I don't know. Just me, like, I highly doubt like a ghost could drug you, but just me, I'd be like, I'm concerned because I'm like, what's in that water? Is it some like weird demonic possession water? I don't think that's possible. Is that a thing? Could that happen? I don't know, but it's like you set your drink down at a bar for like 2 seconds and like accidentally take your eyes off it for literally 2 seconds, and I'm like, nothing could have happened in those 2 seconds, but I'm not taking any chances. That transfers over to when ghosts tell me to go get a drink of water and there's already a pre-poured glass. Call it paranoia, I call it safety first. Our next TikTok spooky user, kasja.spooky.stor.
I got an Appalachian story in my email, and that might be one of the craziest Appalachian stories I have ever heard. Tonight's submitter did tell me I could use her real name, and her real name is Stacy, and she will be tagged in the description. So Stacy goes on this hike. Nothing crazy. She had been on this hike before during the day, but she's on this hike and suddenly she loses track of time. Boom, it's pitch black outside, and she looks down at her phone, and her phone is only at 3% battery and there's no signal. So she figures that she'll just go straight until she ends up hitting a road. Big mistake, because she didn't end up hitting a road. She ended up going deeper into the woods. She said something felt off, like the trees weren't right. Like they had been growing in pain, were her exact words. She kept hearing these sounds, not animals, not wind, like something was whispering, and she heard this metal clicking sound. Then she starts hearing what sounds like wind chimes, but not regular wind chimes. It sounds like they're made out of bone and they're off tune. At this point, she's like, I don't understand where the sound is coming from, but I need to get out of here. So she continues to walk, but then she sees something through the trees. It's this pale light blue light. So she's like, oh great, a campsite, maybe somebody can help me. So she starts walking towards it and she starts to see people, or what she thinks are people. She starts to realize very quickly that these people don't look right. They're wearing old nightgowns, they're very dirty, and it looks like there's blood on them. Then she gets even closer and she's like, oh my God, their faces are wrapped in gauze and their hands are all red. At this point, she just stops and she observes for a second because she's like, I have no idea what's going on here. She observes and she realizes that they are operating on something, literally operating on something. There's someone laying on a table made made of wood and bone, and she's just staring at this point when suddenly one of those people looks up at her. They look directly at her, and she swears she couldn't see eyes, but she knew that they were staring at her. And then she heard a whisper. At first she doesn't know what it's saying, but then she realizes what it said, and it said, "You're early. We can begin." So she just books it. She didn't care where. She just started running. This absolutely terrified her. And as she's running, this dog appears out of nowhere. It was just standing there in the middle of the path, black as night, glowing eyes, making no sound whatsoever. So she thinks this dog is going to attack her, so she gets scared again, and she starts backing away very slowly, and then she turns around and blinks, and she's in a different part of the woods. It's like she teleported. But that dog, it was still behind her, but she didn't hear it move. No panting, no pause, no breath. She started running again because she's like, I have to get out of these freaking woods. She's absolutely terrified at this point. But every time she runs, she stops. She doesn't see anything. And then she hears those wind chimes again. And then she turns and she looks and she sees the dog again. She's not giving up at this point. So she starts running again and she stops again, except for this time she doesn't hear wind chimes. She hears something like, it sounds like someone is blowing through some type of horn, or like she describes it as like she thought someone was blowing through a bone. Like that's what she was picturing in her head. Like a loud horn that sounded like a bone. She says she's not really sure how to describe it or how she knew this. It's something that she pictured in her head, but like she heard it. It was loud and it was clear. So she's just standing there at this point in complete disbelief, and she's terrified out of her mind because she doesn't know how she's going to get out of these woods. And as she's thinking all of these thoughts and hearing this sound through this like horn, she hears a whisper, and it says, "You're almost there. Let us open you up." This scared her out of her ever-loving mind. So at this point, she starts praying, and she's actually praying out loud, and she's saying, "God, the universe, someone, can you please help me? Like, I don't understand what's going on. I need to get out of here." Suddenly, she's alone again, and it's just her in the dark, but it's very, very dark. Finally, she breaks through the trees, and she sees a road, but it's not a road that she recognizes. It's stretched forever in both directions. No signs, just blacktop and trees. So at this point, she's trying to think rationally, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna walk until I see a car, or a car passes me. And suddenly a car does pass her, but it doesn't stop, even though she's waving her arms. She screamed too, but they didn't even glance or slow down. Then she hears footsteps behind her again, and then she turns around, but there's nothing there. So she turns back around and she sees this woman, but she's wearing a wedding dress. This woman is just standing on the side of the road, not moving, and she looks very pale, and she said that her eyes looked very sad. She does think it's a little weird that she's wearing a wedding dress and she's on the side of the road, but she's like, it's a person. Hopefully this person can help me and tell me where to go. So she asks her for directions, and she's like, hey, am I going in the right way? I'm trying to get out of these woods and to this certain spot. And the lady goes, yes, you're going the right way. And so she thanks her, and the lady smiles at her. So Stacy turns around, and then Stacy turns back around really quickly to ask her another question, but the woman is gone. I mean, she said that there was no trace of this woman. There wasn't even footprints in the dirt where she was standing. But she turns around and she starts walking in the direction that the woman told her, and eventually she sees lights in the distance of a town. So at this point, she's like, thank God, familiar streets, street lamps, houses. And eventually she does get home, but she still doesn't know what happened out there. And different people have told her that people have gone missing out in those woods. Some were found wandering roads miles away, talking about a woman in white. She also found out that other people had exclaimed that they had seen this black dog in the woods, and that they had heard wind chimes in the trees. Everyone that she talked to said that if this ever happens to you again, if you see something, no, you didn't. If you hear something, no, you didn't. Which Stacy says this is nearly impossible for her to do. She was only gone for 2 hours, but it felt like an eternity. Only 2. But she also thinks that whatever was out there knew she was coming. Stacy says that she's never told anybody the story in fear of people not believing her, but that she trusts my community and that she knows that we will believe her. And I do believe her. And the crazy thing is that you don't believe something this crazy until it happens to you. I was talking to Jack. Do you guys remember Jack, the story that I told about the guitar and he apparently sold his soul to the devil? He was telling me that he didn't believe in the paranormal at all until what happened to him happened, and that now he can't even watch some of my stories because they scare him so much, because he now fully believes in the paranormal. And this is one of those stories where if you believe in the paranormal, it's hard to listen to because it's terrifying. One thing that I want to know about this story is what the hell those people were doing out there operating on somebody. It looked like some body to her, like a human being. So what the heck do you think that was? Because that part really got me and terrified me. The whispers scared me too. but like that part was the scariest part to me. I don't know about you guys, but please weigh in on this because I would love to know what you think that is, and anything you have to say about the story, please be respectful, but drop it in the comments because so much to unpack here. But with that being said, I'm now going to do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. Annabeth.chase753. You left such a sweet comment underneath one of my videos, and I truly appreciate it. You said, thank you for sharing these stories. Please don't ever stop. And I will never stop. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being a part of this little community. Thank you for commenting and saying that because it really meant a lot to me to hear that. Someone told me today, if you ever feel down, Kaisa, go look at your comment section. And that almost made me cry because I was like, that's so true. I have the most genuine, kind people in my community, and I cannot thank you guys enough. It literally brings tears to my eyes when I think about it. You guys have done so much for me emotionally. You have no idea. So thank you for being one of those people, and I love you. Carmen Lily 7 is my next shout out. Thank you so much for your sweet comment. Again, same thing goes to you. Thank you so much for brightening up my day. Thank you for leaving a comment and pushing out my videos. Thank you for watching my videos. Again, I would not have this page without people like you, and it means so much to me, and I cannot show you my appreciation enough. So thank you. I love you. And my name is Kaisa, and I tell true scary stories on here every single night that you guys submit to me. So if you're into that, hit that follow button, and I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? I need you to keep sending me your scary stories, long ones preferably. What's the second one? Have a safe night. And the third one, say it with me, have a spooky night. I wish I could hear you all say that with me. I love you guys so, so much. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
So I personally would never be walking alone in the woods under any circumstances. Like, I would love to take Oscar through like a little foresty, forest preserve, walkie kind of a thing. However, that's just not gonna happen because I'm deeply terrified of the idea of being in the woods by myself. Even a small suburban, Chicago suburban Illinois forest preserve forest, that's still not gonna happen. Again, you may call it paranoia, I call it safety first. But seeing what I feel like could be described as like creatures, because it's like bloody people. I don't know if I'd like consider them actually people at that point. Like, I'd probably assume it's some kind of weird forest creature, like a skinwalker or something. And they're operating on something, and then you realize that they're waiting to operate on you. Like, that is literally straight out of a horror movie. Yeah, I've literally never heard something so frightening in my entire life. I don't think I've ever particularly been worried about this exact scenario happening, but I feel like subconsciously that's probably what I assume would happen if I go into the woods by myself. So yeah, that's truly one of the most horrifying things I've ever heard. Our next 3 TikToks are by the user mountainrootsmama.
Another spooky ghost story time. So we closed on our first home about a year after we moved to South Carolina, like almost to the day. And our home is a brand new build. We are the only people that have ever lived here, so I'm pretty sure it's the land that's haunted. But anyways, we were in our house for probably a good year and a half before this incident happened. Now, this involved my twins, and I think it took so long for something to happen because prior to this happening, they had just had surgery. Now, they had a severe speech delay, and it was due to the fact that there was something wrong with their ears. They had so much fluid in their ears. It was a whole thing, but they had just gotten surgery, so this was just like a couple weeks after they had gotten surgery, so they could like hear clearly and communicate finally. So they wake up in the middle of the night screaming, which had like never happened since they were, infants. I ran in there, I grabbed one of the twins, the other one my husband stayed with, and the one that I had just couldn't settle, so I brought him into our bed. We're laying there for probably only about 10 minutes, and my son just out of nowhere sits straight up, starts waving like this at the end of the bed and shouting, "Go away." At the same time, our dog is laying next to us and also is just fixated, like just staring straight at the end of the bed with her ears up, like she can see whatever the heck he's seeing. I don't know what to do at this point, but I've seen a few ghost shows, so I start saying, hey, get the heck out of here. If you're going to be scary, you're not welcome here. And after another minute or two of everybody just like fixated on the end of the bed, it settles down and my son goes to sleep, the dog goes to sleep. But of course, at this point, I ain't sleeping. And that was the first of many incidents to come. As I mentioned earlier, I do believe it's the land that is very active, because the area that I live in the south, right near the Appalachian Mountains, we're in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. This originally was a Native American settlement in this area, and then, you know, there was a battle here, settlers came through, so there's a lot of history here. I couldn't sleep last night, and I went down this whole rabbit hole of watching this girl's TikToks, who was a home health worker in the Appalachian Mountain area, and I figured I'd share some of my stories. I'm not a home health worker, but I moved to the Appalachian Mountains a few years ago, and I've got some stories. So I'm originally from Michigan. I moved down to upstate South Carolina about almost 6 years ago now. And when we first moved down here, we were staying with my in-laws while our house was being built. And where they live, it's kind of like a little bit off the beaten path, and they're on a lake. The living situation, we were on one side of the house, they were on the other, and then the middle was like common ground. So that plays into this story, okay? Probably about a month after we moved down there, my father-in-law and my husband went back to Michigan to just help, you know, he was helping him bring the rest of their stuff back down. And so it was just myself, my mother-in-law, and my 8-month-old twins. So one night that week, I heard movement, like all across the house, up and down the hallway in the kitchen. And I was like, oh, I wonder what's going on. Like, maybe she can't sleep. You know, not my business. I'm gonna try to go back to sleep. The next morning, I'm pouring myself a cup of coffee, and she's like, man, the boys must have had a rough night last night. You were up quite a bit. And I was like, girl, I thought that was you. We stared at each other for like a solid minute before we were like, oh. Uh-oh. I kid you not, the next night, it was probably just a couple hours after I fell asleep. It wasn't like super late yet. I hear their bouncers start going off in the living room, and the type of bouncers that they had, like, you really had to like jump and hit them to make them make noise, because they're, you know, very interactive and whatnot. Before anybody says like, oh, it was probably the batteries going dead, what are the chances that both of them, who I had just put batteries in like not long prior, would be going dead the same night? No, not a coincidence. As I'm like out there turning them off, I see her like peek her head out, and we're both just like, what the fuck? Needless to say, we were very happy when the men got back, because we were like, something weird is happening. I'm probably gonna make this a series. I have plenty more stories since moving down here. Not as many at their house, because that was like one of the few instances. But since I've moved into my house, even though it's a new build, there's been a lot of weird stuff happening. It's mainly happened to my children, but it's unexplainable. Another spooky, scary story time. So flash forward a few months, things have been fairly quiet. I have my daughter. We had an issue with a pipe in our house, and it caused it to back up and like flood both the kids' bedrooms, the bathroom. It was a nightmare. The whole flooring has to get tore up, and instead of putting carpet back in the bedrooms, we decided let's just do wood throughout the whole house. So that kind of eliminated them getting out of their bed and going to sleep on the floor. And unfortunately, because it ruined their toddler beds, we had to get new ones, and we decided, you know what, they're 4 now, let's get them those cool loft beds so they can sleep up top and then have like stuff to play with underneath, you know? After about a week of being in these loft beds, several times a week they would be out of their beds running to us in the middle of the night to say that there was somebody in their room. I started asking questions, not to like add any fuel to them being scared, but I really kind of just wanted to know what they were seeing. They said somebody would be walking in their room and standing at the like ladder area of the loft bed where you'd go to climb up to get inside. Not only that, but they said there was multiple in the room walking around. It gets worse. They started drawing pictures of what they were seeing, and I'll insert the picture at the end of this. I actually have one saved on my phone that they drew. Would basically draw pictures of like a square, which they said was their bed, and then like all these little people around it, and they said that they were the ghosts. Naturally, I took matters into my own hands and did the only thing that I knew to do at the time. And when they would be at school and my daughter would be napping, I'd be hollering in this house saying, get the heck out of here, you're scaring my children. And after a while, it started to die down, and we didn't have that issue for quite some time.
I do appreciate the fact that she told it to like chill out because it was scaring her kid and it listened. That's helpful. That's kind. Still don't want a ghost in my house even if they listen to me. But I think to me the most interesting part of this story, well, okay, I think it's really adorable that she like shares a house with her in-laws, that it's like they have their own sides of the house and then a little like common area for all of them. I kind of love that idea. But that's also coming from the person I am at my parents' house like frequently. And my brother finds it annoying how often I go to my parents' house because I'm just like, hey, let me hang out with you guys. But I don't know, that sounds like not too bad of an idea to me. But the fact that they both like hear something individually and assume it's the other one, and it's not until they like converse about it that they realize that it wasn't the other one. I always say this, I love these stories. It's like you both are assuming it's another person and you realize it couldn't have been another person. You both experience the same thing and it has to be paranormal. I love these stories. Our next 5 TikToks are with the user alliecheyswrld.
Tell me a scary story. I'll go first. This girl Bree is a senior in college and she's a triathlete and a swimmer, and she goes to school in East Tennessee up near the Appalachian Mountains. Apparently there's a dam near where she lives which is rumored to have an entire city sunk underneath of it, and it's haunted. Her and her friends often swim there for training, or they run the trail or ride their bikes there for training. One night Bree was running alone on one of the trails that was on this mountain that was like near the water. She kept hearing like this crunching sound. So she's originally from the beach, but her family is from West Virginia in the Appalachian Mountains, so she's aware of like the rules in the area. If you don't know the rules or warnings on staying safe in the Appalachian Mountains, just watch my last video. She chalked the crunching sound up to just being an animal or something. She was still like keeping a good eye on the area though, just to be safe. Where she was at, there was absolutely no cell phone service, so like if she had tried to make a phone call out, it wasn't gonna work. After a while, she hears this really loud scream, and then she hears somebody yell her name. At first, she thought it was one of her friends because she remembered him saying that he would be there that night fishing. She said she always had an uneasy feeling here at night, but that night was like way worse than any other night before. She said the pumps turned on and there's like this really loud noise that happens whenever the water from the dam is open. It's told you should never be in the water or the dam like past dark anyways. That's when she heard the scream again, and it was so loud that it was piercing over top of the sound of like that loud alarm that was playing because of the dam releasing the water. So she heard her name being yelled again, and she realized that her friend was nowhere in sight, so she booked it back to her car. She said, but with each step she felt like she was being followed. Thankfully she made it back to her car safely, but she said to this day she swears she's seen 2 red glowing eyes coming from the woods staring at her. Let me know what you thought about this story in the comments, and if you have a story of your own, you can send it to me on here or my email, which is in my bio. Plan to start posting more again, so yeah, love you guys. If you live alone, or if you even just sleep alone at night, you should probably just scroll on past this video. If you choose to stay, don't say I didn't warn ya. This is a story from eastern Kentucky in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. I know I've kind of been MIA, but I'm sorry, I'm back. I love y'all. I just needed a little break. Let's get to the story because it is seriously so creepy. Bailey used to live in rural eastern Kentucky in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in a holler. Think of it like a cul-de-sac in between a set of foothills. They lived in the middle of the neighborhood with nothing but family on both sides. No one lived across from or behind them because of the foothills. When she first moved in, her grandma told her she had a set of rules for her to follow. Bailey just chalked these rules up to hillbilly stranger danger. There was things like don't mess with the wild animals, don't go out in the woods alone. And that's where things got a little weird. They started being like, don't whistle. If you hear something weird, no you didn't. If you hear someone call your name, don't answer it and do not go towards the voice. If you see someone in the woods that you think you know, but you know they're nowhere around, no you didn't, and come on home. Dad had mowed a path through the tall grass and berry bushes that was on the left side of their double-wide trailer. They used to camp out there a lot because it was right there, like, you know, in the woods, and it was beautiful, but they could still be close enough to go check on their grandma. Now, when you're out in the woods here, things are a lot louder than you think. Got animal life, bug noises, the wind, the creek. And that night, they added a campfire to the mix because, you know, campfire has its own sounds too. Her dad decided to go back up the path about a quarter of a mile to get more adult beverages and to check on her grandma. It's crazy the things you can't say on this app without getting the video banned. Before her dad left, he had specifically told her not to mess with the fire. While he was gone, things started to get quiet, like real quiet. And that's never a good sign when you're in the woods, especially alone. The wind went still, the animal and the bugs fell completely silent, and the creek sounded like it was miles away. She started getting really uncomfortable even though her dad had left her alone at the camp before like this, and that's when she started to smell and taste it. The taste was in the back of her throat from out of nowhere. It was like this awful metal tang. After a few more moments of dread, her dad finally came back. He was mad because he said that he could smell burning metal while he was coming up the trail, and he accused her of throwing his adult beverage cans into the fire. She told him that she hadn't done that and even pointed to the fire to prove it to him. She just immediately changed the subject and said that there was a storm coming in and they had to get back to the house. So they just left the tent there and they started their way back. Now, the very weird but very cool thing about lightning in woods this dense, like in the middle of the night, is when the lightning hits, it lights up everything like it was the middle of the day. Up until like the front of the trees. You know, the next set of trees back, it's still pitch black. There's no street lights, so unless you have lights on your own personal property, it's just pitch black. It's pitch black, lightly raining, and other than the dim lights from the house windows, there is no light. He's eating watermelon as one does in August in the mountains when the first clap of lightning hits. Everything's bright as can be, and then after a second passes, it's pitch black again. The next clap of lightning comes, and that's when she kind of sees it. On the porch, past the yard, over the stream, past the road, just past the first line of trees, she could see the silhouette of it. Then it goes dark again, and this is also when she starts tasting that awful burning metal taste again in the back of her throat. At this moment, she's not really sure what she just saw, so she kind of just stays still. It's a few moments before the lightning hits again, but when it does, the figure is now closer. It's standing side by side to the trees now, and then it goes pitch black dark again. She said it's been 20 years since this day, and she still has trouble fully describing what she actually saw. The thing's head wasn't proportioned right to its body. Its arms were too long and the torso didn't fit right. Once the lightning hits again and everything's lit up, she can see it standing in the middle of the road. Not wanting to wait around and see this thing get any closer, she goes inside. Her grandma's doing the dishes and she asks her why she's inside. She tells her she thinks she just saw something outside. Grandma almost immediately gets her dad on his feet, telling him to shut and lock all the windows and doors. That night, Bailey slept with her grandma. Next day, they discovered the tent's doors had been torn off. Didn't look like an animal had done it because things weren't cut or shredded, but it looked like someone took and pulled it apart. Also, about a mile or so up the road, her uncle had found about 8 chickens out in his yard that had lost their lives. None of them had heads. All of their heads were gone. For the next few weeks, all the kids had to wait for the bus with an adult. Remembers her dad had to be late to work for about 3 weeks. Any time that she tried to talk about it, he'd just change the subject. She just figured it was because she was a kid and it wasn't important or it wasn't real. It wasn't until years later that she finally understood. When she was in her early 20s, some of her cousins came to town for Halloween. As she was telling her cousin this story, her aunt got irate with her. She said, "Don't be telling them that. Do not put that evil on them." After this, she couldn't help but think back on all the times that she had tried to bring it up and she was shunned. So friends, if you ever find yourself in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in eastern Kentucky, don't forget to follow the rules. You can send your scary stories to my email address, which as always, I look forward to seeing you in another video. Love y'all. I was born, raised, and still live here in the Appalachian Mountains. Growing up here, you experience some unexplainable things. There's a set of unwritten rules or warnings or tips that you're told growing up here on how to stay safe when you're out in the mountains. In the last video, I went over some of the rules, like don't whistle. If you hear someone calling your name, but you know that you're out in the woods alone, you heard nothing. Even if the voice sounds familiar, do not respond. Try not to go out in the woods alone after dark. Make sure you close all your blinds and lock all your windows and doors at dusk. Honestly, I left out some of the most important ones, like if you hear something weird, no you didn't. Or if you see something weird, no you didn't. Saw nothing, you heard nothing. But let's say you do hear something. If it sounds like it's really close to you, it's actually really far away, and the same thing goes for if it sounds like it's really far away, it's actually really close to you. If you're unfamiliar with the area, never leave an unmarked trail. Trails are marked for a reason. Don't look in the tree line. You can look at the trees, just try not to look through them because you might not like what you see. The same thing goes for if you hear somebody calling your name, don't respond, but if you hear somebody whistling, also do not respond or do not whistle back. There's still so many more unwritten rules that I heard growing up. If you live in Appalachia or if you've even just traveled to this region, chances are that you've experienced something unexplainable for yourself. I know I've experienced some crazy things living here myself. I've told some of those stories on here before, but if you want me to retell them or tell some other stories that I haven't shared before, let me know in the comments. If you have a story or an unexplainable experience of your own, I would love to hear it. It doesn't even have to be about Appalachia. I love creepy stuff. Send me all your scary stories. You can send those to me on here at my email, which is alliecheyswrld@gmail.com. Love y'all. I live in the Appalachian Mountains. Our dogs used to run off all the time. One day, me and my younger cousin got off of the bus and we noticed that the dogs were nowhere to be found. We lived surrounded completely by forest. Them not being there wasn't unusual, so we decided just to go off and look for them in the woods, which is something we did pretty often, so we weren't scared. Me and my cousin started walking through the woods, calling for the dogs, and I had the stupid idea to start whistling. We heard what sounded like our dog barking coming from deeper in the woods, so we started walking towards the sound. But the deeper we were walking in the woods towards the sound, started getting this really bad feeling in my gut that we needed to turn around. I told my cousin how I was feeling, and he told me that he was sure that that was our dogs barking. We decided to keep walking, and then we heard a whistle coming from the direction that the dog's barking was coming from. When I was whistling, I wasn't doing like a normal whistle, I was doing this weird whistle, and this sounded just like the weird whistle I had just done. Almost like whatever it was copying me. We stopped walking and we heard more barking, and I just knew that it wasn't our dogs barking. Like, it did sound similar, but it just wasn't the same. That's when my little cousin looked at me scared like he was about to say something, and I told him just ignore it. I grabbed his hand and we started to calmly walk back home. I didn't say anything, but the entire time we were walking, it sounded like something was walking back behind us. We kept making the walk back home. It took us another like 15 minutes to make it. When we finally did make it back home, we were trying to convince ourselves that it had actually just been our dogs. About 5 minutes later, our older cousin showed up and we told her what had happened, and she said that we still needed to go find the dogs. So she grabbed her dog who can track their scents, and we headed back into the woods. We started calling their names like we had done before, and I started to whistle. My older cousin stopped me and pointed at her dog who was sitting on the ground growling, looking up at the top of the trees. I grabbed my younger cousin and said we should leave. My older cousin told us no, the dogs could be hurt, so we needed to keep looking for them. After a little convincing, we started walking deeper, but not in the direction that the dog was growling at, just like in the opposite direction. We were walking maybe for 5 or 6 more minutes when we heard what sounded like my mom calling for us, saying she had found the dogs. My mom was in Texas at the time, and she wouldn't be home for 2 more days. We decided to leave. We went the long way, so we weren't walking towards like where the voice came from. When we got home, my younger cousin was crying, asking what if the dogs were hurt, because we just still hadn't found the dogs. Right about that time, our neighbor came walking up the driveway with our dogs. He said they'd been in his house the entire time. He had found them and brought them into his house because the game warden was there. He didn't want them to be taken, so he waited until the game warden left, and then he brought them home to us. The next day, my uncle was asking us about it. When we told him what happened, he looked so scared and said that the game warden was there because one of the neighbors had called in and reported seeing a weird, demented, sick-looking, huge black dog in the forest by our house. They also reported hearing the creepy whistling and barks. If you ever find yourself in the Appalachian Mountains and somebody local tells you that they want to take you snipe hunting, do not go. Now, if you don't know what snipe hunting is, they're going to tell you step 1, you need a bag. Any bag will do, grocery sack, garbage bag, burlap sack, whatever you got. Just grab a bag and let's go to the woods. Step 2, it has to be at dark. It has to be at night. Step 3, they're going to lead you out into the woods after dark to go find a snipe. They're going to have you stand there and hold the bag open while they go off and lure the snipe in. So they'll walk away from you while you're holding the bag open, and you'll hear them making weird bird sounds or hollering snipe, trying to lure the snipe in. All while inching further and further away from you until finally they just leave you there in the woods alone, in the dark, in the Appalachian Mountains at night. Alone in the woods at night, leaving you to find your way back to the campsite or back home or wherever you came from. Now, while there is such a critter as a snipe, I'm pretty sure they're like a shorebird. They're definitely not from around here. Luckily for me, I have really overprotective parents, and my mom never let this happen to me. But I do remember a time that it happened to my cousins. My uncle led several of them out there in the middle of the night to go snipe hunting, and he left them there. Older one out of the bunch kinda had a feeling what was about to happen, so she snuck and followed my uncle back to the house. By the time the rest of them made it in, they were all crying and freaking out, as you can imagine. But yeah, never go snipe hunting. If anybody asks you to go, say no.
I think out of all of these stories, to me the most terrifying one is the fact that she's looking for the dogs and there's something pretending to be the dogs and luring her into the forest. It's preying on the fact that, I'd do anything to make sure Oscar was okay and find him. God forbid he ever got away. So it's preying on that need to go and help your dog, your best friend. And it's using that to pull you into the forest, into its grip, essentially. And that is absolutely horrifying. And then it's is just messing with you. I mean, that is what these mimics do, but it's every time I hear a story about something like preying on you by using someone you care about, or, you know, your animal that you care about so much, like I'm literally getting the chills as I'm talking about this, because it's so horrifying how they're able to manipulate you so easily because they know what's important to you and how to get you alone. Our next 3 TikToks are with the user Autumn in Appalachia.
Okay, so the time has come. Spooky folklore and stories from the Appalachian Mountains. Thank you guys for showing interest in this. This is something I like to talk about just in my pastime. I have a lineage that goes back to like the early 1900s in the Appalachian Mountains, so there are a lot of spooky stories that have been passed down in my family generation to generation, and my family likes to, you know, shoot the shit and talk about stuff like this on occasion. This story in particular that I'm going to tell y'all tonight is involving the folklore around certain cryptids that are notoriously known to be in the Appalachian Mountains, like mimics or skinwalkers. If you don't know what that is, look it up. And I don't know if that's what this was. I just know that it is one of the creepiest things that has ever happened to me. Actually, it was to my fiance. And I mean, like, I've seen some shit, but I have never seen some shit like what my fiance saw this day. And if I sit and think about it, it puts a pit in my stomach, like makes me sick in my stomach. It was not a good feeling. It was not a good vibe. Okay, so this was around COVID. I was living in a house with my fiance and 2 roommates, and 2 roommates were at work, middle of the day. I was in my bathroom, going to the bathroom. My fiance, I hear him. Now, keep in mind, layout of my house, right outside my bathroom door is a hallway, a short hallway, and at the end of that hallway is my bedroom door. The bedroom door is open. I hear my fiance walking down the hallway. He walks right past the bathroom door, and he thought I was in my bedroom, so he's walking to my bedroom and he's talking to me, and he gets to the bedroom door, and all of a sudden it's like radio silent. And the next thing I know, I hear him yell, "Haley, where are you?" And it is like, it sounds panicked, like he sounded freaked out, you know. And let me just tell y'all, okay, my fiance is a hardcore skeptic. He does not believe in, like, you know, superstitious stuff, paranormal things, nothing like that. And that is why what happened to him is so compelling to me. So I obviously answer back and I say, "I'm in here." He opens the bathroom door, and I know, so he opens the door, and I know this is cliche to say, but when I tell you, he looked white as a ghost. He was so pale. It looked like something was wrong. And I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I just saw you sitting on the bed." And I said, "No, you didn't. I've been in here in the bathroom the whole time." And he said, "No, I just saw you sitting on the bed." And he said that it was so real. It's like you were seeing me right now. He said that as he was walking down the hallway, he out of his peripheral vision, when he gets to the bedroom door, sees me sitting on the bed, and my 2 dogs were at my feet, like jumping up, you know, onto the bed, and like wanting me to pet them. And when he turns to directly look at me, nothing is there. I mean, like, my hair was done the same way. I'm wearing the same outfit. Quote unquote, this thing was wearing the same outfit that I was wearing that day. And you know, like, your peripheral vision, like, like, just for instance, there's a birdhouse to the left of me, and I'm not looking directly at it, but I can still very clearly see it. So it's like that, and turns to look, and straight ahead, and I'm not there. And Like that, like I said, it made me sick at my stomach. And was it a skinwalker? Was it some sort of a mimic? I don't know. That is not the only creepy thing that happened in that house. If you want me to share some more that happened to really my fiance in that house, like seeing a hand on the outside of the shower curtain type shit, okay, while he's in the shower, then let me know, and I will put this in my content. If you have any spooky stories, make sure to let me know, DM me, put it in the comments, something like that. Okay, so the first story, it comes from my mom. This happened at the house that I grew up at in Tennessee, and I'll put a picture of the house either in the video or like in the comments, so look for that. If you all have ever heard of mimics, that's kind of what I think this was, and if it wasn't, I don't know what the hell it was, but it's scary as shit. So back to that, you know, folklore, that rule of living in Appalachia, if you hear something call your name, don't answer back. So growing up in Tennessee, my mom said that a lot of creepy things happened at that house, and we were way back in a mountain. Sometimes she would hear us kids hollering for her, just plain as day, hollering her name, hollering for help, something like that. She'd answer back, nothing. Sometimes she'd answer back and she'd hear it again, like hear us hollering for her multiple times, and we would either not be home or we hadn't hollered for her, nothing like that, right? Well, growing up years later, I got married, and it was here in Kentucky, was living obviously with my ex-husband at the time, and then for a while my brother-in-law moved in with us, and one day we were living in a single wide trailer and thin walls. You can hear if somebody is talking even all the way across the trailer. So it was just me and my brother-in-law home. And my dog was he was a little senior citizen doggy. He had like some health issues. He was in my brother-in-law's room with him, and I did not have music playing. I did not have the TV going. It is radio silent in that house. And I heard my brother-in-law scream. And when I say scream, I mean like he hollered. He said, "Haley, help." Or like, "Haley, come here." It was something like that. And it sounded panicked. And he is like a really, I don't know, he's just a mellow dude. He'd never hollered like that before. Immediately, the first place that my mind went was something has happened with my little dog. He's like hurt, or he stopped breathing. Like that's just where my mind went. So I start running across the house, bust in the room, and I said, "What?" And he just looked like, you know, befuddled. He's like, "What?" And I was like, "You just hollered for me. Like, you just hollered for help." And he's like, "No, I didn't." And he's not one to tell a tall tale either. So my mind is trying to find some sort of rational explanation, and there just isn't one. The only thing he had been doing was like laying in his bed, watching videos on his phone. There's no way I could have heard his phone that loud all the way across the trailer, and it was, like I said, distinctly his voice. And that wasn't the only time that happened to us on that property. There were other times, and my memory's a little hazy at this point because it's been years, but there were other times where I know that my ex heard me hollering for him and I wasn't even home. I remember one time I was even, I think at like a job interview or something, and he absolutely heard me. So what was it? I don't know. Now, if you guys have any stories yourself, if you would like to hear stories maybe about like my ancestry and stuff like that, and like my great-great-grandparents. They were born in 1902 and lived up here in these hills. They got some real creepy stories that have been passed down generation to generation in my family. Let me know if I have more interest in this kind of a subject. I can incorporate this into my content. So yeah.
Now, it's one thing to hear someone or hear something like a mimic pretending to be someone you care about, but to physically see it with your own eyes, like your peripherally, like you see this girl sitting on the bed and all of a sudden when you look directly at it, she's gone. That would freak me out so bad. I'd probably assume that I was like hallucinating or like completely losing it and think I need to be locked up or something. I don't know why. That's one of my like biggest fears. Like, sometimes, and I mean, it's definitely related to whatever I have going on here. I'll just randomly see stars or like things fly across my vision, which I know is not normal and isn't probably healthy. Hi, honeybee. But it's just, you know, we're working on figuring it out. But it happens. Like I'll see stars in my vision sometimes, like just for a few seconds, or like I'll see something fly across and I think it's a bug, and then I look and I realize there's no bug, and it's just, you know, me seeing things again. But I panic, like, for a second, I'm like, am I losing it? And then I remind myself that this happens to me all the time, and maybe that shouldn't make me feel any better, because then maybe I'm really losing it, but yeah, every time I see something that's not there because I see something in my vision because there's something wrong with me that we haven't figured out yet, I panic. I'm like, oh my god, am I losing it? Am I hallucinating? And that's just, you know, like a star in my vision, like a flush of something passing by, not actually physically seeing a human being that like I know, and like it makes sense for them to be there, and then realizing that they're not there, and then finding out that they were somewhere else. Insane. I would be like, I don't know, I would be freaking out. Our next TikToks with user Dark Appalachia 375.
You guys want to hear a ghost story? So a girl sent me this the other day. She asked me if I talked about ghost stories on my true crime platform. I told her no, that I was pretty new to it. And she asked me if I would consider doing it. Told her, sure, I would consider it. And she sent me the story, and it sent chills down my spine, guys. So if it's dark and you're alone, please don't listen to this story, because I'm not going to lie, it's super scary. So have you guys ever heard of a mimicking ghost? Something to do with Appalachia? I have. So the way I've heard of a mimicking ghost would be like if a loved one passed away or something, and you smell their perfume or something like that. That's what I've always like heard that was. This is a story of a mimicking ghost, but this isn't like that. So this lady, her name's Emily, her and her husband lived in Florida. They purchased a cabin up here in the Appalachian Mountains, and they came up a few times a year. It was just her and her husband and their two dogs, Remy and Jackson. Remy was a pit bull rescue, very active dog. And then Jax was older, and he wasn't super active. But they both loved coming up here to the mountains and enjoying the land and going to play on the mountain and things like that. They had a bunch of land on part of a mountain, and they had a long driveway that went up to the house, and there was no neighbors around real close. So everything had been good. She'd been up here for a few weeks, and she said that it was in April, so it was springtime, everything was blooming, but it had been raining, which she actually liked that, because she would listen to the rain hit the tin roof when she would go to sleep at night, and she said that it was very soothing to her. And she would sit out and read and stuff like that. She just really enjoyed the rain on the tin roof. She said that was something that brought her so much peace. So she did say that she had like a couple nights where she had some nightmares She could hear her husband talking to her and stuff, and she would wake up and, you know, she would be a little scared, but, you know, everything was fine. She didn't really think a lot about it. So one morning she wakes up and she decides that her and Remy are going to go out on a trail and go for a hike, a little day hike. And so she left her little dog behind, and her and Remy went out and they enjoyed the day. They had a great hike. It was beautiful, beautiful weather. And so on the way back, she stops at the grocery store. She decides she's going to make a nice dinner for herself. She said it was going to be shrimp Alfredo. She grabbed a big bottle of Chardonnay and she walked out and came home and had planned a relaxing night, just her dogs, and she's going to watch her favorite TV show. So she does all that. She gets up. She decides that it's time to clean the kitchen. So she goes in there, starts cleaning. She's done with everything. She starts washing dishes. And in front of her sink is a window. And she's washing her dishes. And all of a sudden, she hears tap, tap, tap on the window. And her dogs kind of start to react. She is just taken back by it, and it scares her. And so she just kind of took a breather for a minute, calmed her dogs down, and was thinking that, you know, and it could have been anything. The wind could have blew something, you know, and it hit the window. But, you know, she was scared, but she got over it. She starts washing dishes again. She's finishing up and doing a couple more things in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, she hears a bam, like a really hard hit to that window. And she said that she went into like a panic mode. And she just starts like kind of backing up. And she got the courage up to go and turn the light off, because it's light in the house. And there's a light above the sink. It's dark outside, so she can't see anything. So she goes over and she turns the light off and looks, and there is nothing there. So she said that the hairs on the back of her neck are standing up. She freaks out. She kind of just, her dogs are still going crazy. And she says that all of a sudden there is a moment of just pure silence, and that her front door slings open. And it's not windy, you know, it's nothing crazy. And she was like, I have to get out of here. I can't do this. And when she's walking towards the door, she said that she could hear a voice saying, Emily, are you not going to let me in? And it just sent chills down her spine. She said it sounded just like her husband. She grabs her dogs. She goes to the car, gets there, realizes that she doesn't have her purse. So she runs back in, gets her purse. She's in tears, freaking out, gets in her car. She leaves. She doesn't really know what to do. She's never had this happen to her before. So she goes to town and finds a place where she can stay, a motel room somewhere. She said that she had to sneak her dogs in, and she got no sleep whatsoever. So she just laid there. The next morning she gets up, she goes to a diner. She sits down at this table, orders her some coffee. The dogs are sitting in the car. She said she could see them from where she was sitting at the booth. And the waitress comes up and, you know, can tell that she's not doing well. And so she asked her if she's okay. And she said that even though she knew that this woman was going to think she was crazy, she decided to tell her what happened. And she tells her that, you know, she could hear tapping on the window. And then when she's running out of her house, that she could hear her late husband ask if he's going to let her in the house. And she, you know, told her, she's like, I've never been this scared. And the waitress told her that that was a mimicking ghost, and that this happens in Appalachia, and that people around here know about this. So Emily's never heard about anything like this, and like never believed in any kind of, you know, supernatural stuff. So this was back in like the late 90s, early 2000s. So she goes to the library and she looks up a mimicking ghost and is doing some kind of research on that and doing research on her house. So turns out there was a pretty brutal murder there that happened years and years and years before this. And so the house sat vacant for a good while. And so someone bought it, and they had lived there for like maybe 2 years and sold it to her. And she got a steal. Her and her husband got a steal on this place. And she said that she didn't contact the people that had it before her or anything, that she just assumed that they had a bad experience and sold it to her cheap. And she, had read in more to this mimicking ghost thing. And she is convinced that this was somebody that a spirit or something left up there that had something terrible happen to them. And she sold that place and she never went back. She does not live here anymore and says that she will never return to the Appalachian Mountains because of this. So this story scared me to death. And I'm wondering, have you ever heard of any kind of a mimicking ghost? I'm just curious to know your thoughts. Thank you. And also, one thing that I have heard, it's like a rule of Appalachia. I've lived here my whole life, but I've always been told that at night before you go to bed to close your blinds. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. What do you guys do?
Our next TikToks with user, the hippie cowgirl 5.
So I've been obsessed recently with Appalachia Spooky Stories TikTok, and I wanted to share my family's spooky Appalachia story. So my grandparents, when they first got married and my mom was born, they were dirt poor, right? Living in the hollers of the Appalachians in Virginia. Dirt fucking poor, right? Like my mom said that she could remember snow blowing in through the cracks of like their cabin that they lived in. I mean, it was bad. He later became a millionaire, but that's a different story for a different time. At this time, they were dirt fucking poor, right? So they're looking for a place to live because they just had a baby, my mom. And they find this beautiful 3-story, multi-bedroom, pretty much almost new house. And it's dirt fucking cheap to rent. Dirt fucking cheap to rent. Now, this is the 50s, so I'm assuming that they didn't question why it was dirt cheap, but they took it happily and moved in. Brother, it wasn't 4 days before shit started to happen. It started with things being moved around. My grandmother would put something down, she'd turn around, turn back around, and it would be moved. She thought she was going crazy at first. And my mean old bastard of a grandfather probably told her she was going crazy too. Until the night that they heard a man's boots coming up the stairs and down the hallway. Now, my grandfather, until he got late stage Lou Gehrig's ALS, had to think for a minute, always slept with a pistol underneath his pillow. Like this man, even before concealed carry was a thing, he was always packing. So my grandmother is nudging my grandfather to make sure he's awake, and he's kind of tapping her like, yeah, I'm awake, and he's sliding his hand underneath the pillow to grab his pistol. Meanwhile, these boot steps, he's pretending like he's asleep. These boot steps are coming in the room and walking right to my mother's cradle. So he grabs his gun, he shoots right up in bed and points in the direction that he assumes that somebody is standing. There's nobody there. Flipped on all the lights, looked all around the house, checked the doors were locked. There was nobody there. Nobody living anyway. Now, this was the point where my grandmother, who was a very intuitive person, if you know what I mean, this was the point where she decided that there was something in this house that did not want them there. My grandfather, on the other hand, he doesn't believe that shit. It had to be something. Rats. Had to have been rats, even though it was boot steps. But had to be mice or rats or something, because he's a man of God and there are no such things as ghosts. Then all the activity just got worse. There was knocking on the wall, stuff flying across the room when my grandmother was just trying to do basic things. My great aunts and great uncles would come and stay and visit with them, and they left the house in the middle of the night because something was banging all around the bedroom walls. It scared the shit out of my Aunt May. to the point she left again in the middle of the night and refused to come back. But my granddad, he's still not convinced. Has to be rats. I don't know why he was so hung up on the rat thing, because my grandmother was like the cleanest person on the planet. And ain't no mouse ever stepped foot in anything that she's owned. But, okay, rats, fine, rats. Now, my granddaddy was so convinced that it was rats that he started putting mouse traps and rat traps all over the fucking house. Now, remember, I told you that this house was a 3-story house, and the flight of stairs going up to the 3rd story had a door at the bottom and a door at the top, and both locked from the outside. I don't know why. It's a little creepy, but they lock from the outside. So my grandfather puts a rat/mouse trap up on that 3rd floor attic space thing. Closes the top door, locks it with a key, goes down the stairs, closes that bottom door, locks it with a key that he keeps in his bedroom nightstand. The next morning, when they got up and went down to the kitchen for breakfast, that same rat trap was sitting on the middle of their dining room table. And yes, we can confirm that it was the same rat trap, because my grandfather went and looked around all the places that there were rat traps, and the only one that had moved was the one on the 3rd story. And it was sitting on the 1st floor in the middle of the dining room table, as if to say, I still think it's rats. The activity was so bad, my grandmother would not be in the house alone. If my granddaddy was at work, she was outside that house. And she'd be sitting on the swing of the porch when my grandfather got home, because she refused to be in there by herself. They weren't there a couple of months before they could no longer live there, and they booked out. And again, it's a very, very small town. We're talking Grundy, Virginia, all right? It was a small town. Everybody knew everybody. And my grandparents were fairly new, so they, were talking to folks. And when they tell folks about the house that they just moved out of, they went, oh, yeah. Come to find out, that house was built by a gentleman for his wife. It was his wife's dream house. She designed it. This was his love letter to her dream house, right? And they had a son. They had a young son. I can't remember how old he was when all this took place, but they had a young son. She got cancer. And before she died, she begged her husband to keep the house so that her son could live in it when he gets older. She wanted her dream house to be passed down to her son and his children. And he didn't fucking listen. He turned around and gave it to his sisters. And they could not live in it. The activity was too bad. And they knew that they had fucked up, according to town gossip. They knew that they had fucked up. They knew exactly who was haunting that house and why. But instead of rectifying it, they rented it out. And nobody else could live there either. For the entirety of the time that this house was inhabitable, because it became very derelict and it was eventually torn down. But the entire time that this house was habitable, nobody could or would live there longer than a few months. They could not keep renters in this fucking house. And they even lowered the price lower than it was when my grandparents rented it, who were, again, dirt poor. Nobody would touch that place with a 10-foot pole. And the ones that did only lasted a month or two. And my grandparents, even my grandfather, admitted that there was something in that house, and that's exactly what they think it was. And again, my grandfather, not superstitious, not a storyteller, not a joker, not an embellisher. He was a mean old hateful bastard. Come at me, he was. And my grandmother didn't lie either. On top of that, every single one of my family members that was around at that time all agreed that these things happened. Now, when I got older and I was able to do some research on the property, because the house became derelict and got torn down, I believe somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s. But when I was researching the property, everything that my grandparents had said about the original owners of the house and not being able to keep, it was all correct. It was all right there in black and white. And the ironic thing about this entire story is that my grandmother passed away in 2018 of dementia. My grandfather also built her dream home. I mean, it was like a manor house. Again, they grew up dirt poor. They were dirt poor. He did very, very well for himself. And before she passed, she asked everybody to put their names underneath furniture to indicate what they wanted when she passed. I refused to do this. And I said, Grammy, just give me whatever you want me to have. I'm not going to put my name underneath your shit like a fucking vulture. I'm not doing it. And she was like, well, baby, just tell me what you want. And I said, Mama, the only thing that I want is to raise my children in this house. I want to keep this house in the family. And she said, you've never asked me for anything? Got it. So when she passes, my grandfather decides to move in a condo. He asks me, or I ask him, I want to buy this house. This is how much I'm approved for a VA loan. I'd like to buy this house. He agrees. My greedy piece of shit uncle convinced him, because again, my grandfather was a sexist, mean old bastard, and my uncle had a penis, convinced him that he needed the extra $50,000. The man, a millionaire, needs an extra $50,000 rather than let his wife's wishes be carried out. So I hope somewhere my mammal is rattling chains and thumping on walls and making their lives miserable, because like the lady in the story, she wanted her baby to have her house, and I ain't sitting in that house right now. So tell me, what's your family's ghost story?
Our next TikTok's with user is spookyalliecake.
Alright, so I have a spooky Appalachian trail story time. Now, I know that this could probably be debunked, but it really spooked me. So I was hiking on the Appalachian Trail with my fiance, and I turned around and looked off into the woods, and I saw what looked like a dog. Like, it looked like a big dog that looked kind of wolf-like maybe a husky or a German shepherd or something like that. So I turned to my fiance and I was like, hey, do you see that? And I pointed over to it, and he was like, it's just somebody's dog. But there was no person nearby, and the dog wasn't moving. It was just standing there staring at us. Well, we stood there for a bit looking at it, trying to figure out what it was, and then all of a sudden, it was a tree stump. Like, it didn't change into a tree stump, it just suddenly was a tree stump. It's hard to, explain. But the thing is, the tree stump didn't look like a dog. It is very hard to explain, but we saw a dog, and then suddenly the dog was a tree stump. And, it looked enough like a dog to where I didn't even say, hey, there's a dog over there. My fiance just was like, oh, yeah, that's somebody's dog. So, I don't know. Could have been just some kind of coincidence where our brains were just not working right. But I've heard a lot of stories about the Appalachian Trail, and I thought that was kind of spooky. What do y'all think?
I feel like this could be explained away by a trick of the eye. However, because she is so certain that it was a dog, and then she made a comment about it, and then her boyfriend was like, it's just a dog. They both saw a dog, and then all of a sudden it's not a dog, it's a tree stump. Sure, could be a trick of the eye, but I feel like that kind of convinces me that they really did see something, and it was maybe something messing with them. I don't know exactly what would be the purpose of that. Again, I feel like we never really know the purpose of a lot of things paranormal, because, what are you gonna do? Ask it? It's not gonna tell you. Probably won't even respond. But, I don't know, I really am inclined to believe that what they think they saw is what they saw. Our next 7 TikToks are by the user CLV0090.
I grew up smack dab in the middle of Appalachia, and there's always been a story that's followed my family. And now, as I'm an adult and I can sit back and process it, I realize that it's a story about mimics. When I was younger, I just thought it was folklore. I just thought it was something like a story within my family, but I don't think it really was, and I'm going to tell you some details about it. Disclaimer, a lot of people in my family have had experiences with the little girl. I personally have not, but I'm going to tell you some of those secondhand experiences. And one of them, my dad told me about. For all of my childhood, I remember stories of the little girl. And this little girl was a small child, probably around the ages of 4 to 5 years old, who had long blonde hair and was always said to look like one of my cousins. Again, different people in my family had different experiences with the little girl, but I always remember the stories being that every time they saw her, or they saw a glimpse of her, they thought it was my cousin. And I don't remember it being malicious in nature, but I do remember her just popping up in random places, and everyone in my family knew the little girl or had a story of the little girl. So growing up in Appalachia and in the middle of nowhere in a rural community, it's super normal to live around all of your family. So I did that. My house was at the bottom of the hill, and then my grandparents' house was on the top. I had aunts and uncles that surround them, and my cousins. I come from a really big family, so I have tons of cousins, and my mom has 12 brothers and sisters. Anyway, so I remember my dad telling me the story of the one time he had the encounter with the little girl, who again looked like my cousin and had long blonde hair. So he was in the kitchen and there was a window above the sink. He tells me that he was looking out of the kitchen window, and when you looked out, you could see the driveway where we would park our cars, the end of the driveway. And he was looking at the car and he saw the little girl. But again, this looked like my cousin, so when he saw her, he assumed it was my cousin. I believe that I was at school. It was like the middle of a weekday and I was at school, but my cousin at this time wasn't old enough to be in school. So he had thought that she had ran down and was playing around the cars. So he either walks outside or he walks to a window. I can't remember which one. And he calls her name and he was like, "Don't be playing around cars. And do your parents know you're here?" And then he didn't see anything. In fact, it was almost like he saw somebody playing around the cars, and then when he went to go tell them not to, nothing was there. I believe there was a story my grandmother used to tell of she went into the kitchen one day. As she's walking into the kitchen, she sees the back of the little girl. Of course, she sees the long blonde hair, the build of the child, and she thinks it's my cousin. But again, I don't remember anything malicious about the stories because I always think mimics, I think malicious behavior, but the little girl never really was bad, evil, ill intent, I think, from the stories I can remember. So maybe it's not a mimic, maybe it's a spirit connected to my family, not sure. So I just text my cousin and asked her, "Did you ever see the little girl?" And she responded in all capital letters, yes. So her story goes as follows, which jogged my memory, so now I can say I actually do have an experience with the little girl. My cousin reminded me of the story when she was playing with my other cousin upstairs in what we called the old house. And the old house was a 100-year-old plus farmhouse that my grandparents had lived in later in their life, and then my aunt and my cousins had moved in. So they're upstairs playing Barbies, and the way this is set up was the upstairs was our playroom, and there was toys everywhere, and then downstairs was the rest of the house. So they're upstairs playing Barbies, and they hear a little girl singing, "Ring around the rosy." Another time, my cousin was walking to my grandma's house, and again, my family all lived around the same holler, and she looked over to where my cousin, who the little girl always is said to look like's house, and she sees what appears to be my cousin peeking around the corner, but it wasn't her. She said she thought it was my cousin, but the little girl just turned around, giggled at her, and ran off into the woods. I reached out to another cousin who said he hadn't seen her firsthand, but he remembers stories that his mom had told him about they were walking again up to my grandma's from their house, and they looked over and they saw the little girl who they thought was my cousin just peeking out around the corner of the house and then disappearing. So is the little girl a mimic, or is she just a friendly spirit that's attached to my family that just so happens to look like my cousin? I'm interested to know what you think about this story, and if you have any similar stories about energies, spirits, small children, etc., clinging on and being attached to your family, let me know in the comments below. If the little girl is a good spirit, is it common for spirits that have good intention to completely mimic people who are alive in the real world? Is it common for them to mimic their entire body language, their personality, the way they look? Everyone who has seen her or had an encounter with the little girl swears she looks just like my cousin. Anyways, let me know your thoughts below. I grew up smack dab in the middle of Appalachia, and I have scary stories for days. On this episode of Sunday Scaries, I want to talk about a mysterious figure that appeared while my cousin and I were outside playing basketball. And I also want to apologize for being MIA for a month, and I don't know, just life got in the way, and I'm also filming from the bed because I fractured my foot. But anyways, let's get to the Sunday Scary. I want to set the stage for you. This is deep in the hills of eastern Kentucky. We're in a holler. If you don't know, a holler is kind of just a small road off the main road. It's typically gravel and usually only one way. Like, meaning if you meet a car and you're driving, somebody's going to get in a ditch. Somebody's going to have to get in a ditch. So my cousin and I are playing basketball, and I remember this vividly. There's no other houses at the time during this holler. There was only 2 houses 3 houses, 3 other families. So you really couldn't see anybody else. My cousin and I are playing basketball. So we have there's like a little basketball court, basketball hoop, and the road in front of us goes straight down, and it's a gravel road. I don't remember how this happened, but I looked up and I see what I remember to be a woman. And she is looking straight ahead. She is dressed in army green from head to toe. She has the hat on. Her hair is pulled back and it's neatly tucked away. She has, again, the army outfit tucked in. It's clean, it's polished, the boots, etc. And she's marching. And she's looking forward and she doesn't acknowledge us at all. But I cannot tell you where she came from. I didn't see her come down the road. She appeared in front of us. And she walked with really so much conviction, and I looked over at my cousin and we both saw the same thing. We talk about it to this day. We both remember seeing a woman appear in the middle of nowhere, and again, she just marched to the end of the road, not even acknowledging us, looking straight ahead, very stoic, and just marching. So long story short, this house eventually becomes a rental. Somebody in my family owned this home. They started renting it out to other people. So come to find out, one of the renters, and this was probably 10 plus years ago, was my best friend's sister-in-law and family. And we were just having a discussion maybe a month ago, and I was telling him about this image of this woman marching in her army greens, just vividly appearing in front of my cousin and I. And he said, well, that's really funny because his family member who lived in the same exact house one day looked out the window at night and could have sworn that in the field she saw soldiers. So I did a quick Google search to see if there's any significance, if there's any historical battles that have happened, and it says yes, Eastern Kentucky hosted several significant historical battles, particularly during the American Civil War, including Battle of Middle Creek, the largest and most important Civil War battle in the region, which launched James A. Garfield's political career, other notable battles, etc., etc., etc. So is it a coincidence that when we were small children, probably 20 plus years ago, we see a soldier basically appear out of nowhere, and then years down the line another family moves in and looks out their window at night to see soldiers in a field? Again, Appalachia's full of stories. The mountains are old, things that have happened that people just can't explain. And sometimes I get oh, this is the Karenization of the Appalachian Mountains. First of all, shut up, fully shut up. I grew up there. There are weird things that happen there. I don't necessarily think that everything is true. I think a lot of times people glorify Appalachia because it is creepy and old. But I don't think you can sit back and just pretend like nothing happens there. Anyways, do you have a scary story that's similar to mine? If you have an Appalachian story, I'd love to hear it. If you have a Sunday scary, send it my way. Maybe I'll tell it next week. My goal is to get back on a beautiful cadence of being creative, telling stories. It's just been a very difficult month.
Goodbye.
My girlfriends and I probably had one of the most scariest weekends of our lives when we took a girls' trip in the Appalachian Mountains. And before you come at me, I need you to know that I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, born and raised Eastern Kentucky. I'm going to try to make this as short as I can, but I have to give you the story in the chunks and the details that had happened because none of it makes sense. We frequent Boone in the mountains. It's an easy drive for us, and we just love staying there. We love going to the wineries. The area is just beautiful. We go to the fall to watch the leaves. You can go in the winter and just catch a cozy vibe, or you can go in the summer and beat the heat from the city. The way I have to explain this story to you is that this happened in phases. So I would say phase 1 is the first night that we're together. Phase 2 is the actual occurrence. And then phase 3 is the follow-up and a weird story. So we stayed in Linville Falls, and if you're familiar with the area, it's a super small town, and you can go to a crossroads essentially, and there's an old store, there's a bunch of old houses built into the mountains, and there is caverns, I think, that you can go and tour. So it's me and 2 of my other girlfriends. My 2 girlfriends are coming from the city. I'm coming from somewhere else. They're driving together and I drive separate. So I arrive there first. And when I walk in, the place is immaculately clean. It's beautiful and it's old. It's rustic. They've kept that old charm. The stove is old. All the kitchen appliances are old. They've kept a lot of the stone features throughout the house. There's a wood burning fireplace. There's a record player. And so of course I have to go play around with the record player. So anyways, I'm there by myself. I've already made my rounds, and the owners of the house have actually set out a bottle of bourbon for us. It is super cozy and we're getting ready to start the night. The girls have arrived. And throughout this entire cabin, there's relics from the past. It's very old and rustic and mountain filly. And there's a guitar. There's a corner with some old guitars and some old instruments, a record player, yada, yada, yada. And my girlfriend picks up the guitar and she just starts being silly and strumming there's a video. I will have to ask them before I show it, but if I get permission from them, I will post it. But anyways, I filmed the video of my girlfriend playing on the guitar and I sent it to my mom, and my mom says, "What is that light that just came out of the guitar and flew into my other girlfriend?" So we laugh it off because when you go back and watch the video, there's a light that leaves the guitar and then it goes like into my girlfriend. I'm filming. And we laugh it off because we're a couple of drinks in at this point. So anyways, this is phase one. This is the night before everything happens. We're doing our thing. We're going outside. We are inebriated. And I tell you this not to condone it. I tell you this because like Satan himself could have walked into the room and I would have made him a cocktail. Maybe I didn't notice what was going on. Maybe we just didn't notice. But I also think that it made our vibrations and energy a little lower and again, fed into this whole fiasco that I'm going to go into. Long story short, that night we all crashed together in the living room. There's a couch, there's a love seat, there's a recliner. We all have our own spaces and we crash. So I wake up in the middle of the night and we always have music playing. We always bring a speaker with us. That's our vibe. But I wake up in the middle of the night and I notice like this loud music is playing and it's creepy. But the sheer volume of it, there's no way we had our music up that loud, and how did we sleep through it? I also have an eclectic music taste, and you know when you turn your music on, sometimes it shuffles and you're like, I have no idea how this got here, but I genuinely have no idea how this song got on anywhere on my playlist. But I wake up my other girlfriend and she was like, what is playing? It is like very low vibration, but it's techie, disco-y, and a little rock. But the energy is off and we're just like, that's weird. Anyways, we all slept in the living room that night, which is going to bring me to night 2. Okay, so the next morning we get up, we have plans, we're going to go to a winery, it's going to be a low-key day. I get up and I make coffee, I'm doing my morning routine, and I notice something right then and there. There are rosaries all over this house. Every doorway, every archway, it is an entrance and an exit into a room, if it's a doorway, there's a rosary. And I think I have some pictures and I'm going to look, but if I don't have them, I'm sorry. No idea how we missed that, but I pointed out to my girlfriends and we're like, that is weird, but we also are in the South, so maybe they're religious. It's somebody else's home. Whatever, it is what it is. But then we got to thinking that maybe we should start poking around and looking at the guest books and looking at the things that they have sitting around the home. Not that we didn't poke around before, but we see the guest book, so we open it up and my girlfriend starts reading it out loud and we start noticing something. This house is old and there's a lot of older views. They go back to the 90s, which would make sense. We're also in a ski resort town, so people would have came and stayed for skiing. But the message is the same constantly. This place feels like home. It's so warm and inviting. I feel like I've been here before. Everybody's saying the same exact thing about this house. In fact, what we think is even more weird is that people are leaving Polaroid pictures of their families in this book. Again, it's a ski trip, whatever. It's their kids. They're like going down the mountains. It's snowy. But there are a lot of pictures of families, and they all think it feels like home. Anyways, we laugh it off, and we're like, this house is trying to keep us. Like, it's trying to keep us like the movies where you go a place and you just truly never can get out of it. We go to the winery, we have a good day. Nothing of significance happens. But phase 2 is coming next. Now, again, when I start talking about phase 2, I want you to know that I'm telling you from my perspective. So the girlfriends and I, we decided we're not going to sleep in the living room. We have to drive back home tomorrow. There are 3 bedrooms. We're going to sleep in a bed and get a good night's rest. It's an old mountain home and it's got 1 bathroom. That's really common with old homes. So there's a long hallway. There's 2 bedrooms on one side, 1 bedroom on the other, and the bathroom is at the very end of the hallway. I go to the bathroom, get ready for bed, don't think anything of it, and go to sleep. There's also a storm coming, so everything that I hear, I'm chalking it up to the wind, to this noise, to the storm. Also, there is a back porch that goes and kind of backs up to the room I'm staying at, and if you walked down this back porch, there's a window, and that window would be into my bedroom that I'm in. And I just hear what sounds like somebody running or pacing back and forth on this porch. And I'm like, it has to be the storm. I'm not going to go out here and wake up my friends. Like, this wind is crazy. And then we start hearing knocking at the door. Well, I start hearing knocking at the door. And I'm like, again, maybe there's something on this back porch that is blowing. The wind is blowing it against the door. I'm trying to tell myself that this is silly. Why am I being scared? I'm an adult. Then the door handle starts jiggling. And I hear, like, when you have the door locked and you hear a jiggle. So, again, how is the wind doing this? But at the same time, I hear somebody get up and walk down the hallway and go into the bathroom. I see the lights turn on. I hear the water running. Somebody's in the bathroom. And I'm like, wow, this storm is so strong. Like, it's woken one of my girlfriends up. I hear somebody walk back down the hallway, get in a room, and I keep hearing people walking down the hallway. And I'm like, who's going to the bathroom? But again, we're adults, and I'm like, I don't want to bother anybody. But like, I keep hearing somebody walking to the bathroom. I hear the door open. It's old. I hear the creaks. I hear the sink turn on. I hear the toilets flush. Like, I hear someone's in the bathroom. Anyways, I barely got any sleep that night, and I tried to pretend like it was just this wind and this storm, but I was completely creeped out. So phase 3 starts. It's the next morning, and I wake up and I see my girlfriend sitting on the couch, and I'm like, what are you doing, girl? And she was like, I could not sleep. I kept hearing something like it was pacing the porch, and like I kept on hearing the door handle jiggle. I kept on hearing like somebody was knocking on the door, and it was freaking me out. And I was like, me too. I said, and who kept going to the bathroom? Did you go to the bathroom like 3 times? And she was like, no, I thought it was you or my other friend. And I'm like, well, it wasn't me. I said, but I kept hearing somebody going to the bathroom. I was like, girl, it wasn't me. Must have been my other friend. And we were laughing, but we like realized we had the same experience. We were just in 2 different rooms. So then my other girlfriend comes and she's waking up and she's coming to the living room to talk to us. And we were like, why did you go to the bathroom so many times? And she's like, I never went to the bathroom once. I thought it was you guys. She also confirmed that she heard all the noises and like the door handle jiggling, etc., etc. So we just realized in that very moment that all 3 of us were in different rooms and had the same experience all night. We heard the same things, we thought the same things, and none of it was true. So we're freaked out, but it's checkout time. We're laughing it off. I go to make coffee and we're talking about it, and I turn around and I say, it's so funny that all 3 of us had the same experience in different rooms. And as soon as I say that, the electricity to the entire place cut off. Needless to say, we have never packed an Airbnb and got out as fast as we did, but to this day, people don't believe us. People don't believe the story. It's one of the weirdest things that I've ever had happen to me in my life. If you have a similar story, I would love to know, because I truly, truly cannot explain the events of that weekend, and I know some things just don't have an answer. Anyways, yeehaw. My girlfriends and I probably had the creepiest weekend of our lives when we went on a girls' trip in Appalachia. I was filming the Sunday Scaries earlier this week, so I decided why not make a scary story about it. And when I say Sunday Scaries, I mean my job. I had the Sunday Scaries. A lot of you had questions and a lot of you shared similar experiences. So in order to get this video under 10 minutes, I went into the basics of the story. But there is a lot more. This happened back in 2020, and it's weird because I had a dream about it the night before, and then I thought, hey, why don't I just make this a story time and see if other people have had experiences like me? I'm not the first one to come on here and tell scary stories, but I think it's interesting. So I called my girlfriend up, one of them that was on that trip with me, and I was like, do you remember anything else? I know this was years ago, and I tried to reach the high-level points, but I feel like there was so much more, and she shared this with me, So if you go back to that main video during part 2, where this actual occurrence happens, where we start hearing people walking through hallways, we're hearing people walk on porches, my girlfriend says she wanted to tell me her experience from her room. So if you watch the original video, I break the story down into phases. And then in phase 2, that is when the girlfriends and I all go to our individual bedrooms for a night's sleep. But during that night's sleep, weird things start happening, and I'm telling you from my perspective. I'm hearing people walk up and down the hallways, going to the bathroom at the end of the hallway. I'm hearing footsteps walking across the porch. I'm hearing doors jiggle. The door is locked. I'm hearing the door jiggle. I'm hearing banging all over. And I'm telling myself that it's just a storm. My girlfriend is really into spirituality and meditation. It's something that is very much a part of her personality, and she's good at it. We were talking yesterday, and she said, don't you remember what I told you that happened to me that night? And I was like, kind of, sort of, remind me again. She said, I was hearing the same things you were. I was hearing people walking up and down the hallway. In fact, I was waiting for one of you all to peek around the corner because I was sure that it was one of you and you were just going to come back into the living room where I was. She also shared with me that she just wanted to relax, and she told herself, I need to close my eyes and meditate and just go to sleep and get this night over with. But she said her mind would physically not let her relax or meditate. In fact, there was a voice inside her head that said, you need to open your eyes. You shouldn't be trying to meditate now. And you need to be focused and aware. I also posted the video of the record player. I'm still talking to my girlfriends. If they give me permission, I will share the video with the guitar. This seems like something that's interesting to people, and a lot of you have had similar experiences. So if you want me to make a part 2 and tell you other things that happened during this weekend, let me know in the comments.
Where are you going? Think you're getting out of here?
No.
Here we go. My girlfriends and I probably had one of our freakiest weekends of our lives when we took a girls trip in the Appalachian Mountains. And you guys have sent in so many questions. I had no idea this video was going to blow up like it did. But if you're seeing this video on July 26th, it's girls' night, baby. So my girlfriends, we do this every month, will be at my house and we're going to go through the comments and answer some questions. We've read every single comment and we want to make sure that we're interacting with you, that we're answering your questions because they're valid questions. And you're going to get perspectives of not only me, because I was the one telling the story last time, but you got my perspective. And now you're going to have both of my girlfriends here who lived through that experience with me. So we want to know, do you want us to make videos responding to your questions and kind of giving you more information or letting you know? Or do you want us to go live and we can take your questions in real time? So drop a comment below. Additionally, so we don't have to dig through all those comments, go back to the main video. If you click on this comment here, you can go back to the main video where I tell you the story about my Appalachian experience. P.S. I'm from Appalachia. But click on that comment right there. It'll take you to the main video. You can watch it. And if you have any questions, come back to this video and drop them in the comments because we're going to be answering questions and taking you back to that night when we had probably one of the spookiest, creepiest, non-explainable weekends ever. My girlfriends and I had one of the scariest weekends in our lives when we took a girls trip in the Appalachian Mountains. And we're all together because it's girls' night and we're going to answer some of the most asked questions. First off, they're camera shy, so I'm going to be answering a lot of questions, but I'm going to be forcing them into the camera when I can. One of the first questions we get asked a lot in the videos is, where is this Airbnb? So stop! A fly flew in her ear. This has nothing to do with the story. Let's try that again. One of the first questions is, where's the Airbnb? It's in Linville Falls, which is outside of 30 minutes outside of Boone. 30 minutes outside of Boone. I'm going to put a screenshot. It's hit and miss if you can book it. I think it's only available
September?
In the fall. Here is the outside of the house and the fire pit that everyone was mad that we went outside to. And there's Kira. But this is the outside of the house. So this is the back porch. My bedroom is one of these windows because if you go back to the original story, I hear people running on this porch and shaking that back door all night. So that's one of the bedrooms. And this is the kitchen. So very homey, if you will. Where we spent most of our time. Did anything happen in the kitchen?
That's where the lights went out.
This is where the whole house lights went out.
Well,
this is where it started. So the next most asked question is, why did we go to the Appalachian Mountains?
The scenery.
Have you ever frolicked with your girlfriends? Is all I have to say. Like
the woods.
The woods.
It was a good time.
It was quiet.
The winery.
Yeah.
The trails.
Yeah.
The trails. Another question is everyone else's perspective from the night of, so if you remember, the story was in phases. So phase one was just like we woke up and there was weird music playing.
You can do it now.
Another question is the perspectives of everyone else that night. So the first night, was just the first night we were all sleeping together in the living room and we woke up to loud music. So my other friend here, she woke up and heard the loud music with me, so I'll give you a chance to. It was just loud, creepy.
It was just loud
music.
Yeah.
Loud, creepy music.
And that was really it.
I think really the second night is the most important because all three of us were in separate rooms and we had the same experience within the same night, but we were in different rooms. So How did you feel that night?
So that night, it was pretty peaceful for me. Walking in, I realized there was crosses everywhere. So maybe that's why I didn't feel the spirits as much. The spirits. The spirits. It's the spirits.
Feeling the spirit
in my body.
I think it's important to note that this friend's room had crucifixes all over it, all like in the front.
Before you walk in.
Before you walk into the door,
as well
your
as in
bedroom.
the room. Yes, over the bed. There were probably 3 more on the other
yours?
wall.
I didn't have a bedroom.
She didn't.
Oh, we have to get into that later. Mine did not, because mine had a mirror that was like in front of my bed, which freaked me out because is it feng shui or?
It's feng shui and it's just
bad energy to have like a mirror facing your bed. I had to cover the mirror up with a blanket. But I think you had the most similar experience to me in that you heard like
walking.
I don't know, I'm gonna start talking.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I just heard like weird stuff. I heard someone walking like up and back and forth in the front porch or back porch. I heard someone like messing with the door. I was like freaked out, but I was like, it's the wind, it's fine. And then I kept hearing people walk up and down the hallway. And I was like, oh, it's just one of my friends like going to the bathroom. They'll eventually come up the hallway because it sounded like they were coming towards me and no one ever came.
But we all three can confirm right now, I never went to the bathroom that night.
Right, no. I didn't go.
You didn't go to
the
the
lights
bathroom.
were on all night.
Yep.
Because my room was right next to the bathroom.
But we all heard somebody walking to the bathroom, in the bathroom, etc. Yeah. So, a ghost with bladder incontinence. The guest book.
The guest book was creepy. So it was from maybe how many years ago?
It was like in the
90s.
Yeah.
Of just families after families saying that they have stayed here, they have skied here in town.
Leaving pictures of their family. Yes, that's what threw me off. Like the
many
Polaroid
different families.
Pictures of families. Weird. That threw me off because maybe it's the day and age we live in where we're like, don't leave a Polaroid.
But all the messages were very similar.
They were all the same.
Like it felt like home.
Yes.
I've been here before.
So
or it felt like I've been here before.
Yes.
Yeah, the hominess or like... it was like homey, but it was also, I've been here before. Mm-hmm. That's what freaked me out because in the original story, I mentioned that I came separate and they came together and I got there first. I was there for like 2 or 3 hours by myself and I text them and I call them and I'm like, this place feels like home. It's so cozy.
Yeah,
like this is before we even looked at the guest book. Mm-hmm. Like I was saying all that. And then I messed with the record player, which was...
That's probably what did it.
That's actually what did
and
it.
And I did the guitar, so that probably did it too.
The guitar. Oh, another thing too with the guitar is a lot of you guys are like, oh, it's an orb, it's not light. I don't know the difference. It just looks like something moving. I mean, some of you are even saying it's dust, and that's plausible. It could be dust moving. I'm not... It is what it is. But given everything that's happened, I don't think it's dust.
No. That was weird.
We all chalk it up to a unique experience that can't be explained, but in the comments below, let us know. Have you ever been on a girls trip or a trip solo? It doesn't have to be the Appalachian Mountains, but have you been on a trip or just had an experience that you can't explain? I would love to hear about it. Bye!
Okay, I love that she's got like live evidence and then she brought her friends in to tell their sides of the story. Because obviously the main focus of these TikToks I've shared with you from her is their girls trip experience. I don't know why, I always get so excited because every video there's always a few TikToks that somehow all like relate to each other, and this goes back to the story of mountainrootsmama and her mother-in-law who were alone in their kind of little family compound and were both supposedly hearing each other, walking to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and it wasn't either of them. Like, I love how every video there's just a few that really resemble each other, and it's like it creates a theme of each video. And here we have this on this girls trip where they're hearing each other supposedly up and about in the middle of the night, but it's not any of them. They're assuming it's the other one, and it's not. And they realize, and they're all just incredibly uneasy because something is walking around in this house. To me, it was definitely something. We'll never know what exactly, if it was just a person, their spirit kind of hanging on there, or if it was a negative entity, a demon per se. Maybe it was just residual energy that was just repeating itself over and over again and wasn't actually an intelligent spirit. Who knows? We'll never know, but I do think it was paranormal. Our next 2 TikToks are with the user risingappalachia.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? You want to hear the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me? Well, one of. So when I was a little kid, I would go to graveyards sometimes. My mom would kick me out of the house because she wanted to clean. She would not open that door for nothing. So I was like, I'm going to go on an adventure.
So I went up this freaking mountain. We lived on a mountain in the middle of BFE, West Virginia, by the way. So I went up on this mountain and I found this really old graveyard. It's this like World War II cemetery memorial place. And I would just like mosey around, just like, I don't know what I was doing when I was a kid. I just like graveyards. I would like pick up flowers if they had like knocked over, and I just like hang out with them because, you know, they probably needed some company. And there was this little yellow house across from the cemetery. It was this beautiful, like, bright yellow house with, like, rocking chairs out front. And there was an old man who had been sitting there watching me. I don't know at what point, but I just knew that he, like, had been sitting there watching me, and he was rocking in his rocking chair. And I don't know if he called me over or not, but I eventually just kind of, like, wandered over to his house. Stranger danger, I know, but I had no stranger danger in me. So I sat down on the other rocking chair. And we just like kind of rocked together, and he was like, "What's your name?" And I told him my name, and he didn't really, it was just like a little conversation. There wasn't much, but I remember him being like, "Do you want some lemonade?" And he went inside and he got lemonade, and brought it out, and we just sat there rocking and drinking the lemonade. And eventually I got up and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go now." He was just like, "Okay, goodbye." And I walked down the road, like, I don't know. I kept walking down this road just seeing if I could find something else to do. I never found anything. I ended up walking back, and when I passed back by, the yellow house was like, it was like decrepit. Like the rocking chairs were like broken, and the house was not bright yellow. There was no old man. I don't know. I was very confused, and I went home. But there were many other times I walked up there to that cemetery, and the house never looked like bright yellow. It was always like decrepit, and I was just very confused, like, what happened? Never saw the old man again. But as an adult now, I'm like, was that old man real? Like, did that actually happen? Did I make it up? Like I know that I drank lemonade with him. I have like vivid memories of the outside of this house and that old man and drinking the lemonade and talking to him and him talking to me. But I could never make sense of like why, and just me walking like somewhere else for like 30 minutes and coming back, did the house look different, and why did it always look different after that? It was just, I don't know. It's something in my brain that I've always wondered about. I'm just like, what the fuck? All right, there you go. Have a good day.
What paranormal experience turned you from a skeptic to a...
I had this crazy dream when I was pregnant, and it ended up becoming true, kind of. So my grandpa had this desk. He got it at an antique place a long time ago, and he's passed away, and it's been around for years and years. My gran had it. It's moved around state to state, and she ended up giving it to me. I still have it. It's really old. It's in my closet, so it's dark. So basically, in the dream, I was a little girl. I had a sister. We lived in a totally different time period, probably like 50s, 40s, 30s, I don't know. And I lived with my mom. My dad had died or something, and we lived next door to this man that my mom was dating, and he was our neighbor. And I was acutely aware in my dream that like other kids in our town or whatever were going missing. I don't know how much time was going by in this dream, but it felt like a really long time. Like it felt like over the period of maybe like a year or two. So this part of my dream, excuse me. So in this particular part of my dream, me and my sister are walking down this road, and she's like, you know, more kids have gone missing. You know, he's not home today. And I was like, who? And she said, he left his desk unlocked. And I was like, who? And she said, he's been taking all the kids. And I was like, who are you talking about? And then she whispers, he took me too. And then like, I don't know, it was this weird moment in my dream where she just kind of like faded. Like I knew she was a ghost. It was like all these months like flashed before my eyes, whatever. I have really vivid dreams. So I realized my sister had been taken too. And I just knew for some reason it was our neighbor, the guy my mom was dating, it was him. And I ran and looked in this desk in his house, and I opened up the desk, and there was all these tiny little teeth. These little, I thought they were rocks, but I like picked them up and I looked, and they were like freaking like baby teeth. So like I told my husband about this, and like months and months went by, and then we were cleaning out this other room, and we were moving the desk, and our house is like newly renovated, like all new floors, all new paint, everything. So we were moving the desk out of there, and then I was sweeping up the floor, and then I like see like a little white thing, and I bend down and I pick it up, and it's a fucking baby tooth. And my kids, my baby wasn't born yet, and my toddler didn't have any teeth yet. So what the I held it up to my husband, and I was like, he was like, get the fuck out of this house. This is so weird. Go away. I have a picture of the tooth somewhere in my camera roll. I tried to find it a few months ago, but I don't know. It's in there though. Not like anyone will care, but it's weird.
I feel like this is kind of a sweet story because she spent time with this man, and, you know, they had a nice little conversation. She, you know, they kept each other company for a little bit, and I don't know, maybe it was just this guy's spirit was just hanging around, and for whatever reason she was able to see the house as it was and was able to see him, and he probably got a little company for the first time in a very long time, and, you know, now we get to have this interesting story from it. I think it is a really, really sweet encounter. Our final TikTok of the video is by the user ahoytherechibs.
Hey, you guys want to hear about a really creepy experience that I had the other night? So I was taking Buck to get his nails trimmed the other night, and we were going a completely different way than we normally do because we were not coming from home. So we ended up going down this road in the middle of nowhere in a town like north of us, and it's 5:40 at night, so it's like pitch black here. It's snowy. All woods. We're in the mountains. So I'm like driving down this windy road in the middle of the woods in the pitch black, and I come around this corner, and right in front of me is this abandoned house. As soon as I lay eyes on this house, I am hit with the deepest sense of dread. Like, I have literally never felt so deeply uneasy in my life. Like, just truly disturbing. Like, my stomach sank. Oh my God, it was like the most disgusting thing I've ever felt. So like all the windows are gone on this house. They're not just like broken or boarded up, like they're straight up gone. And just past this house is this huge wrought iron gate, like 8 foot tall, you know, creepy looking wrought iron gate. And it's at the end of a dirt road. And just past this house and the gate, on either side of the road are barriers. And it's pitch black. I can't see anything, but just like intuitively, I know like there's marshes on either side of this road. So I'm like hit with a wall of like dread and unease. And all of a sudden, I am acutely aware that we're not in an area that, you know, makes sense for us to be in for the route that we normally go to the groomer. And I have no cell phone reception. And I am all of a sudden realizing I am out of gas, and I'm just sitting here like, we're going to die. We're about to go off the road into this marsh that I know is there in the darkness, just past where I can see. We're going to drive off the road into this marsh, never to be seen again. We're going to die. We didn't. We were okay. So we, you know, go to the groomer, get his nails trimmed, go home, whatever. And we get home, and I'm telling Devin this story, and he's like, what time was that? Apparently, at the exact same time, Devin had fallen into like a deep sleep and was like startled awake at the exact same time. And he said he had this just like overwhelming feeling that something awful had just happened to me, like I had just gotten in a car accident, and he like checked my location. So now I'm like, ooh, double yuck. So I'm like, I gotta go like search this place up. Like there has to have been like a murder or something in this house. So I go on Zillow and like Google Street View. I'm able to find the place, like, you know, by going down Google Street View down that road. And the Street View images are 16 years old. So they're like blurry as shit. And on top of that, they are practically useless because there's the most ridiculous lens flare from the sun that's whiting out like at least 50 to 60% of the image. In Google Street View, the house is brown. It was blue when I saw it. And the gate is not there in these Google Street View images from 16 years ago. So it doesn't even look like the same place. But like as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's it. That's the place. And there's no history about this house on Zillow, no purchase history, no sale history, no nothing. I Google the address, nothing comes up. It's like it doesn't exist. So my best friend and I go over to my Cuban mama's house last night, and they're both pretty like intuitive, metaphysical people, but especially Marie, my Cuban mama. So of course I'm like, oh my God, I gotta tell you guys what happened last night. Like, it's so weird. So I'm like telling them this story, and they're both like, oh, ew. And I'm like, you know, and the weirdest thing is like, you know, there was nothing around it that made me think this. Oh my gosh, that's my Apple Watch telling me my heart rate is high. But I'm like, there was nothing that I saw that indicated this to me. But like when I think about that wrought iron gate, I just have this intense imagery in my mind of like an abandoned mine or like an abandoned like lumber mill or something. And I basically hadn't even got the words out of my mouth when Marie was like, a mine. She's like, yep, I also just got images of a mine. And Bree's like, I also just saw a cave. So now I'm like, what the actual fuck? I pull up the Google Street View and I show it to them, and my best friend Bree is like, that makes me uneasy. Like looking at that photo, that makes me uneasy, just the photo. So like I'm telling them like, yeah, and I had this feeling that like we were about to go off into the marsh and like disappear and like die and never to be seen again. And without missing a beat, Maria's like, no, there's already a car there. That's why you were feeling that. It wasn't that was going to happen to you. It's because there's already a car there. And I'm like, but it wasn't even the marsh that was really skeeving me out the most. It was like that gate, that house, and like whatever was behind that gate. And Marie's like, I think there's multiple things going on here. Like there's something old and evil that is like attached to that area, and it's drawing other stuff in. It's the reason why there is a car in that marsh that hasn't been found yet. So of course then I call Devin and I'm like, you need to get over here and talk about this with us. So Devin comes over and he says apparently he looked into the area a little bit further, and there are like quarries and mines in the area. And in case you're wondering, yes, we are in a section of the Appalachian Mountains. I don't know what the fuck is over there. All I know is that I will never be driving down that road ever again. I don't know what was attached to that area, but I can take a fucking hint. Sorry to disturb you. You will never see me again. I will never go near you ever again. So sorry to disturb you. And like, to be clear for people who don't know me, I'm very comfortable in the woods. I lived in Maine in the woods. Like driving around at night in the woods does not disturb me. If anything, it actually is very relaxing to me. I enjoy it. And sure, there have been a couple times where I felt like mildly uneasy, but I have literally never in my life felt like this before. And there are plenty of abandoned houses around us. Like they don't make me uneasy. I have never experienced something like that ever in my life. Like just absolutely disgusting. I don't know.
This is really crazy to me. It seems like she was tapping into maybe the fear of whoever was in that car that went into the marsh. Maybe it was connected to the house, maybe it wasn't. Who knows what's in that house? Maybe it's being used as something not so great and she was able to pick up on that energy. Maybe it was connected to the car going in. Maybe it was just a coinky-dink. Maybe the car was in a similar situation like her and was just driving past and had a weird feeling and also went in, and she's like having that exact same experience, and thankfully her and her dog are both fine and they made it out and they're sharing the story with us. But it is really, really weird that she just had this really like terrifying feeling while she was in the area. And as she's explaining it to her friend and her mom, they all like tapped into this like old mine / cave idea without even discussing it first. They all had this vision and then were like, oh my God, I also had that vision. Later to find out that there are in fact mines in the area. It definitely feels like they were all somehow tapping into like the energy of the area or that incident. So it's not necessarily paranormal in the sense of like, oh, there's a ghost floating around. Well, there could be, but it's not like she encountered a ghost per se. It's more of like they were all somehow tapped into the energy of this place, which is also another crazy thing to experience. That is all I have for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on the TikToks I've shared with you today. Feel free to tag me in any TikToks you want to see me include in a future video. My username is @AbbeyStorySubmission on TikTok. All of the users included in this video will be tagged down below as well. While you're at it, please check out my Instagram and TikTok that are also linked down below. I post spooky special effects makeup on those platforms. I'm really hoping that even though it doesn't seem like I'm going to be fixed really quickly or anything like that, like I was hoping, as I'm finding out that apparently getting fixed when it comes to medical issues takes a lot longer than you'd like. But I'm really hoping that I will get back to doing makeup looks the first week of May. Really hoping I'd get back to it at the beginning of January, but I miss makeup so much. I think you guys will really enjoy the looks that I post. It's all, you know, spooky fun stuff. So I'm really going to be pushing myself to be able to do that and, you know, make sure I get these videos up twice a week. So frustrating when I don't feel well enough to do things, but I'm really going to be pushing myself to try and be able to do the twice weekly videos every single week and get back to my makeup looks. Whole thing is very, very frustrating. But yeah, please check out my Instagram and TikTok for that content. Also, like I said, I will be doing a more in-depth talk through, get ready with me about my whole situation if you're interested in hearing about that. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, hit the subscribe button down below, and turn post notifications so you never miss a video. I post Sundays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.